Lesson 4 from the prose Anandi Gopal and Autobiography. Before we begin, it's important for us to understand what does mean by autobiography. Autobiography is the story of a person's life written by the person himself. It's different from biography. Biography is the story of the person's life written by some other person. But an autobiography is the life story or story of life written by the person himself. So we are going to study about the autobiography of Anandi Gopal. This person, Anandi Gopal, is the first woman Indian doctor. She is an inspiration to all the women in the world. In her autobiography, she shares the problems faced by her. She talks about the struggle she has gone through or she did to achieve her goals. So let us begin. Anandi Gopal was born on March 31st, 1865. Her birth name was Yamuna Joshi. She was born in Kalyan, which is a small town near Mumbai. When she was of 9 years old, she was married to Gopal Rao. Her husband Gopal Rao was an ardent supporter of widow remarriage and women education. Her husband believed that women also need to be developed. Women also have equal rights as men. So he wanted his wife to study, but it was difficult because in those days women were not allowed to study. So Gopal and Anandi moved to the Calcutta. After her marriage, her name was changed from Yamuna Joshi to Anandi. And when the both husband and wife moved to Calcutta, the husband started teaching her. And her husband also tried to get her admitted in any university in America, but he was unable to do so because her husband believed that she had more potential. She was capable of doing something good. Just by chance, Mrs. Carpenter of Roselle, New Jersey, came to know about Anandi's story. Another person we are talking about here is Mrs. Carpenter. She lived in Roselle, New Jersey. She got to know about the story of the Anandi. So she decided to help her. But unfortunately, Gopal could not get a job in USA. So finally, it was decided that Anandi would alone go to America for completing her studies. And when this was decided, the people criticized the husband and wife to such an extent that they threw stones at them and also cow dung. But in spite of all this criticism and problems, Anandi reached America in June 1883. Anandi wanted to become a doctor because in India there were no female doctors, because of which women faced many problems. Even Anandi lost her first child when she was 14 years old because there was no lady doctor at that time. Mrs. Carpenter found many things strange about Anandi. When Anandi reached America in 1883 and she started living with the Mrs. Carpenter's family, so Mrs. Carpenter found many strange things about Anandi, such as Anandi would never sit in front of Mr. Carpenter because it was a culture in India. And Anandi was a pure vegetarian. This was also a surprise for the Mrs. Carpenter because she was entirely different, her family was entirely different. Anandi was admitted in the women's college in Philadelphia. Philadelphia is the name of a place where the women's college was located. Until then, Mrs. Carpenter took care of Anandi just like her daughter. And when Anandi was admitted in the women's college in Philadelphia, the superintendent and the secretary of that college, they were very much impressed because she came to study there from so far in spite of the problem she faced, and they offered her $600 as scholarship for 3 years. There was a room provided by the college, but the problem was the room did not have proper fireplace. The fireplace emitted a lot of smoke and there was cold also. So, to avoid the cold, she had to lit the fire, but the smoke had caused her many problems. Anandi tried to get into some other place also, but she was unable to because nobody wanted to rent her a place. At last, she decided to stay in that room, and because of which her health condition became worse day by day. But somehow she managed till her final exams, and she completed her studies. And on the day of convocation, her husband was also present, and it was announced that she was the first woman doctor of India, and it was a very proud moment for her husband and also most happiest moments in Anandi's life. And unfortunately, day by day, Anandi's health condition was becoming worse, and she was admitted in the women's hospital in Philadelphia. When she was admitted there, the doctors diagnosed her with tuberculosis, and the doctors advised her husband to take her back to India. So her husband took Anandi back to India, and after reaching India, there she stayed in her cousin's home, which was located in Pune, to receive the treatment from a renowned Ayurvedic specialist. But that person who was Ayurvedic specialist refused to treat Anandi because he believed that she had crossed her boundaries. And finally, on 26th February 1887, she died at the age of 22. Her ashes were sent to Mrs. Carpenter, who wanted to place them in family cemetery at Poughkeepsie. She was an inspiration and will be an inspiration to all the women in the world because she proved that if one has a potential, it doesn't matter whether the person is a man or a woman, if one has a desire and a very strong desire, then they would achieve their goals definitely.